He checked his reflection one more time in the scratched bathroom mirror, smoothing down the collar of his only decent shirt. It wasn't new, it wasn't fashionable, but it was clean, and for tonight that would have to be enough. He had exactly $50 in his wallet. Not 50 for fun, not 50 for emergencies, 50 total. 50 to cover the date, the tip, and anything unexpected. But a blind date was a blind date, and after 3 years of raising his son alone, he had finally allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, someone might see him for more than the exhausted single father struggling to make ends meet. He looked at the small drawing stuck to the mirror with tape, a crayon portrait of him and his son holding hands, the words, "Good luck, Daddy," scribbled in crooked letters. He smiled, tucked the drawing into his pocket like a charm, and whispered to himself that everything would be okay. He needed to believe it. The restaurant his match had chosen wasn't fancy, but it wasn't cheap either. It was the kind of place where dates were supposed to go well. Soft lights, warm colors, gentle music, all of it made him feel like an imposter walking into someone else's world. He stepped inside, feeling every insecurity rise like a tide. The host glanced at him, hesitated a fraction too long before offering a polite smile. Single fathers in worn shoes weren't their usual clientele. He gave the name for the reservation and followed the host to a small table by the window. As he sat, he slid the $50 deeper into his pocket as if hiding them from the room itself. He wasn't ashamed of being poor, but tonight he wished life had left him with a little more to work with. 2 tables away, a man in an impeccably tailored navy suit lifted his eyes from his tablet. He had been reviewing quarterly projections, waiting for his partners to arrive for a late dinner meeting. From his seat he had a perfect view of the nervous single dad fidgeting with his sleeves. Something about the man captured his attention, not pity, not curiosity, but recognition. The CEO had once been that man. Years ago, before the empire, before the headlines, before success. Before he lost himself in money. The single dad checked his phone again. She was 10 minutes late. He told himself that was normal. People ran late all the time. But when 20 minutes passed, the hope he'd tried to build inside himself started to crack. When 30 minutes passed, he ordered a glass of water to avoid spending money. The waiter's raised eyebrow stung more than he expected. The CEO closed his tablet, no longer interested in numbers. His own guests still hadn't arrived, and he found himself observing the quiet desperation unfolding a few feet away. The single dad kept glancing at the door with a soft, hopeful expression, an expression that slowly dimmed with each second. The CEO had seen that look in the mirror years before his life changed, back when his bank account held 2 digits and his heart held too many disappointments. Finally, the dad received a message. He stared at it for a long moment, shoulders dropping. She canceled. No explanation. Just an apology and a vague promise to reschedule someday. He put the phone down gently, almost tenderly, as if even now he refused to be angry. He had gotten his babysitter, dressed up, come all the way here with the last money he could spare, and she didn't bother to show. He took a slow breath, forced himself to smile, and caught the waiter's eye. "I'll just pay for the water," he said softly. The CEO felt something twist inside him. He signaled discreetly to the waiter and murmured instructions. The waiter nodded. Before the single dad could protest, the waiter returned with a warm, careful smile. "Sir, your meal will be out shortly." The dad blinked. "I didn't order anything. It's been taken care of," the waiter said. Compliments of someone who wished to remain anonymous. Confused, overwhelmed, he looked around the room. His gaze landed briefly on the CEO, but the millionaire only returned a polite, unreadable nod, nothing more. The dad didn't want charity, but he also didn't want to make a scene. So he said thank you, quietly, and folded his hands. When the food came, steak, mashed potatoes, a glass of wine, his eyes widened. It felt like the universe had given him a moment to breathe, a moment to feel seen. He ate slowly, savoring each bite, grateful without knowing whom to thank. The CEO watched him with interest. He admired the man's dignity. No greed, no entitlement, no false pride, just humble gratitude. When his business partners texted that they were stuck in traffic and running an hour late, the CEO made a decision he hadn't made in years. He abandoned work. He stood, adjusted his jacket, and approached the single dad's table carefully. "Mind if I sit?" he asked in a calm, warm tone. The dad looked startled. "Oh, sure, but I didn't want to take anyone's table." "You're not," the CEO said with a small smile as he took the seat. "I'm the one who sent you the dinner." Shock crossed the dad's face. I appreciate it. Really, but you didn't have to do that." The CEO shook his head. "I know I didn't have to. I wanted to." He paused. "You looked like a man who needed a win tonight." The dad laughed softly, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "Yeah, it's been a rough few years." He hesitated, but something about the CEO felt safe. "I'm a single father. Been raising my boy alone since my wife passed. Money's tight. Everything's tight." The CEO nodded with genuine empathy. "You remind me of myself a long time ago." The dad's eyebrows lifted. "You, really?" The millionaire chuckled. "Believe it or not, I wasn't born in a suit." Then his expression softened. "I know what it's like to juggle too many responsibilities with too little support." For the first time that night, the single dad relaxed. He told a few stories about his son. How smart he was, how shy he was, how he had recently learned to draw faces instead of stick figures. He talked about working double shifts as a mechanic, trying to save enough to eventually move out of their cramped apartment. The CEO listened closely. He wasn't pretending. This man's honesty, resilience, and quiet strength impressed him more than the business meetings he was supposed to attend. "You know," the CEO said eventually, "you handled tonight with grace most people don't have." "I didn't want my son to think giving up is normal," the dad said. "He watches everything I do." The CEO leaned back, studying him. "What's your dream, if money weren't an issue?" The dad flushed, embarrassed. "It's stupid. Try me. I want to open my own auto shop someday," he said softly. "Not a big one. Just a place where people aren't ripped off. A place I could actually be proud of." The CEO's mind was already working. The man had integrity, drive, humility, the traits money couldn't buy. The traits he wished some of his executives had. What if, the CEO said carefully, someone believed in that dream? The dad frowned. "I don't expect handouts." "This wouldn't be a handout." The CEO leaned forward. "It would be a partnership." The father stared at him, completely thrown. "I'm serious," the CEO said. "I invest in people, and I see someone worth investing in sitting right in front of me." The dad felt his throat tighten. "Why me?" "Because you're honest," the CEO replied. "Because you work hard. Because you showed more integrity in the last hour than some men show in a lifetime. And because I'd rather help build something real than fund another meaningless corporate project." Silence hung between them before the dad swallowed hard. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything tonight," the CEO said kindly. "Think about it. I'll give you my card." He slid a sleek black business card across the table. The dad stared at the embossed name, one he had seen in newspapers, online, everywhere. He looked up sharply. Yeah, the CEO said with a modest shrug. "But tonight I'm just a guy who saw another guy having a rough night." The dad laughed, covering his face with both hands. "This is insane. Most good things start that way." They spoke for another hour. Not about contracts, not about money, but about life, dreams, and second chances. The CEO liked this man, respected him, and the single dad, overwhelmed but grateful, finally allowed himself to imagine a life that wasn't defined by struggle. When they finally left the restaurant, the CEO clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Go home to your son. Tell him his dad had a good night." The dad smiled, warmly, sincerely, for the first time in years. "Thank you for everything." "Don't thank me yet," the CEO said with a wink. "Wait until you see what we build." The single father walked into the night with $50 still in his pocket, but now he carried something far more valuable than money. For the first time in a very long time, he carried hope. And at the next table, a billionaire who had everything found something he didn't know he'd been missing, a reason to believe in people again. The world was full of strangers, but sometimes fate sat them 2 tables apart, and waited for one small moment of kindness to change both of their lives forever.